We are milling walnut. Getting closer. So, I'm gonna put you over here so you can see what's going on. All right, what's going on? How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the show. We're doing a little bit of an impromptu live stream tonight here in the workshop Friday night, May 30th, and thought that I would let you see a little bit behind the scenes what we're doing here. I was up at Hearn Hardwoods today, up in Oxford, Pennsylvania. I like to go there because I'm building this side table made with Koa remnant pieces, and I needed some more pieces to finish the base. So I picked up some pieces, and now we need to mill them down and get them all kind of dimensioned and just cleaned up so that I can see the grain patterns and all of that. Now, one of the interesting things about Hearn is that they sell, because they import Acacia Koa trees trunks from Hawaii. They mill them down, and they're doing a lot of soundboards and stuff like that. So they're making stuff with it, and so there's a lot of offcuts. So they've got these big bins filled with offcuts of Koa, as well as things like ebony and all kinds of interesting exotic woods, domestic hardwoods as well, and they're just leftover remnants. So you go there and you pick through it, and they range anywhere between $1 to $4 a pound. The Koa is $4 a pound, so it may sound like a lot, but really it's quite affordable. And then, like, for example, they had this piece of walnut here, and this is at least a 10-quarter piece of walnut that was of course rough sawn, and I've been working on it today. Put it on the jointer, and now put it on the jointer, and now through the planer, and cleaned it up pretty well. Like these two surfaces are square, and now this surface and this surface are parallel for the most part. Like, it's not completely parallel. I decided to stop the milling, even though I've got a little bit of roughness right here, as well as a little bit of roughness right here on the bottom corner there. Now, why did I stop? I mean, mainly because I'm thinking that I'm going to use this as the rear leg on the Concordia chair. Which is this chair here. I've been using these walnut pieces. I think these were 6-quarter when I got them, and I dimensioned them down. So, but I was thinking, what if we made it really, really thick? And so I'm thinking that this could be, actually, now that I look at it, it's fairly ridiculous. So who knows? But I've dimensioned it down. And what does it mean when you're milling stuff down? You want to mill your wood. When you get it rough sawn, you get wood that's rough sawn. Let me find out here. Here's a piece of white oak crotch that I got, and I took it to my local miller, Andrew Easter, and had him run it through his wood miser. Not a wood miser, but the green one. And as you can see here, it's fairly rough surface, right? The surface is rough. A lot of times, if you can look here, you can see that there are these vertical lines. These are actually the lines made by the bandsaw as it's cutting them through. So the bandsaw is running through the wood, through the trunk, just like this, and slicing these little slices out. Now you can set the machine to take whatever size, whatever thickness you want. This one we're playing around, this is probably what, half, 3/4 of an inch maybe at the most. And like I said, and then when you set the mill, you can set it like this is fairly thick. And as you can see here, it's a quarter sawn because you can see kind of the vertical grain running through the end grain, which means that your long grain is going to be fairly straight. We might have, I heard we're having storms, but I heard we might have a tornado, but we're going to find out. And so you take that and you cut it out, and when you get the rough sawn lumber, like, where's another piece? I should have another piece that's rough sawn somewhere here. Oh, this is a great example. This is a piece of rough sawn walnut. All sides are rough. You can see here, all sides are rough, 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 and rough. Now, you could do this with any size board. You just need to have the right tools. Now, what you want to do is you want to have it all nicely surfaced. Like this is nice and smooth and even. So you're going to take what's called a jointer. And the jointer is this type of machine that's going to cut the wood, and you're going to pass it through the cutters like this. And what it's going to do, it's going to smoothen out this face. And you're going to pass it through, keep passing it through. Now, of course, it's all uneven. There's a lot of undulations, a lot of roughness. So you keep passing it through until this is completely flat, until you've reached this kind of surfacing, right? Once you've reached that kind of surfacing, then the jointers have an L bracket, right? So basically this vertical is parallel 90 degrees. So you're going to take it, after you've surfaced the one side, well, let's say you do it this way, right? You surface it on this bottom here. Now you're going to put this side that has been cleaned against the fence and pass it through the cutter this way. If you do it right, you'll get a right angle, a perfectly 90 angle. And you're going to take several passes through that. And as you can see here, I don't know why I keep choosing this largest piece, but if you take your square, actually I should go look for it. Theoretically it should all be square, but you can theoretically take your square and you should see no light coming through the seams, right through here, the surface. It's okay, it's a little bit not perfect. Oh, there, that's a lot better. Oh yeah, here there's a little bit of rough sawn there. But through the thickness of the board where I need to have, where I'm going to probably cut it out, like these end pieces, the end sides, I'm not really too worried about dimensioning them completely perfect because they'll probably end up on the floor. So once you've got the wood square, then you want to pass it through the thickness planer. And that's what I was just doing now. So as you can see here on this side, this piece is rough here because I was putting it through, and I'm putting it through this way. And what this is doing now, it's using, the wood is now on this surface, right? It's on here. It's passing on these plates. And there's actually heavy-duty rollers inside here that are pushing down on it. And there's a cutter in between the two rollers. So as it passes through the rollers and through the cutter like starts to make it parallel in thickness to the opposite side. And then you adjust it by, you're using this wheel to lower the cutter head, and the rollers capture the wood, press it down, plane it off, surface it, and then eventually you remove all the roughness till you get it nice and smooth, and then you'll have parallel surfaces from the top and the bottom. Now, like I said here, you can see there's a little bit of roughness here. This is actually left because it is below. It's kind of hard to see in the image, but it is actually lower than the rest of the surfaces, right? So you can plane down to this and eliminate that completely, but I decided that, I'll probably not use that end of it for the finished piece. So I'm not going to worry about, planing it down, because the more you plane, the thinner it becomes. And I'm trying to preserve maximum thickness, because if I decide not to use it for the leg, then I can use it for something else. And, you can always take away, you can never put back, right? Now from here we've got the bottom, the side, and this side square. Now this should all be square, so let's double check that. So this square, right? So we've got everything square, except for this other face. This part is the rough sawn still. So if we put this up here, we should see some kind of undulations or something like that. It won't be perfect. This one's not too bad because it's fairly smooth. I think at Hearn, whenever they were cutting this off, this is the piece that probably went, this is the side that went through their table saw or whatever they're using to cut it. So it's fairly in good shape compared to the rough sawn from the mill that you see from like the coarse sawing, like in this case, right? So that's essentially what we're doing today. And that piece of walnut is pretty much done. Now what we've got to do is to thicken the thickness plane this koa. Now I've got several pieces of koa here. I ran them through the jointer, and this particular one's got a lot of tear out, so it's for a hardwood, it's a bit soft, and it's also a little bit rough. And what I'm doing is I'm taking a bunch of these, and I'll show you. I'm taking a bunch of these to make a base for a table. I'm working on a side table. It's a little bit buried beneath all these pieces of wood, but as you can see here, there's a slab, a koa slab right here, right? And I've already gotten these cutoffs that I have, dimensioned up roughly. They're not perfectly dimensioned, just to see like what kind of pattern I can make for a base. So the idea is that these will all go together and then form the base that comes down off of the back. And then there'll be a front piece where the other side will hold it up. But since I only had these pieces here, it's not, as you can see, it's not as wide as the base. I was actually kind of short the last time I was at Hearn, so I had to go back there to get more pieces. And I've got a few more. That we're going to, dimension out. Like this one, you can see I put a little bit of markings here to note what I've already surfaced and squared. So these should be pretty square, hopefully. It'd be embarrassing if it's not. So yeah, there we go. Nice and square through that. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass these through the thickness planer. And I think I'm going to I'm going to pass it through on this. So I'm going to pass this down through this, and we're going to pass it through so that this will plane it off. Now, as you can see here, it's a little bit thinner here than here. So as it comes through, the planer is going to be set to a certain height with the rollers, and it's going to be trying to roll it through, but it won't do anything. So I'll push this all the way through to here probably before it actually catches, and it will only start to plane back here. I'll do one run past through it, and I'll show you what I mean by that. As always, make sure that if you're working in the wood shop, you want to make sure that you have your PPE. It's very important to not kill yourself. I also have a couple of fans running. Well, not fans, but a little bit of a filtration running. I've got a bigger filter up here. That's a MERV 13 filter, so that's kind of got the HEPA-ish kind of quality. And then for near field collection, I've got this MERV 11 on a box fan. And the box fans pull, these are $20 cheap box fans, but they pull a good volume of air. Now a lot of people will think that, I'm just going to put a 1-inch filter on here, but what you really need is you need enough surface material from the filtration material to allow for the air to flow through. Evidently, the more surface area that there is, the easier it is to flow. And that can be done by doing what I've done here, where I've taken 5 filters and put them in a box, or 5 1-inch filters, or I've taken one 4-inch filter to do that. And so I've got this for a near field. It's not as fine as the MERV 13. This is a MERV 11 with a MERV 7 kind of pre-filter. It's kind of, playing off the whole like Festool Cisair thing without having to spend Festool's money. And it's going to pull that, and I put it in its near field so that in case it's close to it, hopefully it'll catch some of the dust and particulates, and then eventually the bigger one will catch the smaller particulates, like down to the 3-micron filtration particulates, which is the worst ones that you want to get rid of. So let's go and run this through. I'm going to show it to you, and it gets really loud when I turn everything on, so it would be fruitless to narrate, but after I pass it through, I will then speak again. Okay, so what I've done is I put it through a couple times. You can see here, it's because of the thickness, this hasn't been touched at all, this part here, and now only as we're getting down to it, it starts to get smoothed and cut here. So as the cutters come down more, it will, the idea is that we're going to surface the entire thing, and that will make it all the same thickness and 2 parallel surfaces. You might have been able to hear how different it sounds as it goes through. That last cut was a lot. I adjusted it a little bit deeper so you could hear the difference. And we're still working our way slowly. What we want to do is do small cuts so that we don't damage the piece. Like if you go too deep, it can, tear outs, and then you have more work to do to correct that. But as you can see, it's coming down smoother, right? So, and then I'm also moving from side to side because the cutters, I want to expose the cutters to more even wear. here's something you ought to watch out for, right? That last pass, I've been putting the piece in the same way each one, but right now, that last pass, we got a little bit of tear out. So now we have to be careful, now the question is, if I keep pushing this direction, will there be more tear out? If so, then we might have to turn it around. But we're going to pass it through one more time, and also we want to make sure we're taking lighter bites. For a harder wood, this is actually pretty soft, so you want to be careful of that. Okay, that was worse. We got more tear out here, so definitely this is going to be the best way to push it through the planer. Okay, so I've got it planed down more or less. However, there's still a little bit of lower here, right? So there's still roughness here. But now again, I could keep going and take that out completely. However, I'm not going to, because all I need is 24 inches for the length. And I still have to decide how I'm going to use it in the stack. And this is, how long is this? So let's just presume that I was not going to use that top area. Oh, actually, we would probably have to use it because it is 24. This piece is 24. So maybe I should keep dimensioning it. All right, we'll keep dimensioning it. Okay, that has done it. We've got it all the way down dimension. From, that all piece was, rough, is now all perfectly smooth. Ready for a little bit of sanding if I want to. Now we've got this face clean, a little bit dirty, but flatten this face, squared to this Right, is that right? Or should I do it this way? Right, that's fairly square. And then now it should also be square to this face. And why is it square to this face as well is because these two are parallel. All right, so now we've got that finished. Ooh, the bed's a little bit dirty. If you have any questions about milling, let me know. I've got some time. Put that over here. So we've got a couple more pieces to do. Like here's a great example. This one we have dimension. Now this one's got a bit of a curve. You can see how at Hearn they cut the wood fairly curved. I don't know for whatever purpose, but we might try to use that to our advantage later. These two surfaces have been planed, so now we're going to do this side. So we're going to raise the bed high. We're going to raise the bed and push it back. And maybe I'll. Pull this over so we can maybe a little bit better view. Maybe one day I'll have like a camera person that can come and show more angles. When I become the Rob Cosman or whatever big YouTuber there is out there. Let's continue. So we're gonna raise the bed. Let's just go here. Now I can start. We want to fit this in here, so we're going to raise the bed until the piece can slide under. Now you can see there's this little scale here. This is just kind of a gauge to show you, oh, this may take out, like you can see that's a high, it's kind of, what is it? I can't even read that, but basically that's way too high. So we want to come up until it's just about there, and you can kind of push it in, and I can hit the rollers. So I'm going to come up a little bit more, and just kind of wedge it in, kind of feel for it, come back with it, okay, and then come back down a little bit. Okay, that should be a good spot for us to start with our milling, and we're going to push it through. All right, that pretty much does it. We've got the, you see, as you can see, it doesn't really take too long. And we've got a pretty smooth here, square and square. And the only part that's left is this rough end. There's actually a part of me that's thinking maybe I can use this on the ends and get us curvature. But I don't know about that yet. But we're still thinking about that. Now maybe this one. Oh, did we do this? No, we haven't done this yet. So these are the two sides that are surfaced. And this one actually has a curve to it. So we're not going to plane that one. We're going to plane this one off of that surface, right? So again, raise it back up. Feel it, and then we're going to push it through. Okay, there it is. We've finished that side again. So once you're really rolling, it doesn't necessarily take too long. It's a little bit dirty. So I got that. And we just got a couple more pieces left to go. All right, let's do it. I just noticed as it came out of the planer, it kind of jumped, which means that it's not totally flat. So that means that this surface is still bowed, where there's a curve. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it. We're now going to plane the top here because that should be relatively flat. So back up. Okay, we'll try that. Okay, look at this piece. Maybe I didn't do a great job on this one. We may have to run this back through the... Yeah, it's a little bit hemajang. We're gonna have to run that through the whole setup again later. This should be good. Yeah, I had the markings. That one I didn't mark up because I think that wasn't square. So on this piece, what do we have left? So we've got square, square. That feels relative. Oh, I think I did this already. Is that right? Oh yeah, that is fully surfaced. Well, just some thoughts on milling here in the workshop on a Friday night. If you have questions about milling, let me know. We're doing, I do these live streams every blue moon, but maybe we'll start doing them more. But that's basics on milling lumber. The next thing to do is, of course, well, let's say like this let's say this piece here, right? We've got these three sides all surfaced. This is what we call S3S, right? Now, in order to finish it off in S4S, there's this last piece of this last side of it that's rough. What you want to do then is finish surfacing. And a lot of times people will just run it through the table saw to bring it to the final dimension or the final thickness, and also give it a nice smooth surface. TJ Riley says, first one I've caught you in your workshop. Ah, well, welcome. Glad to have you here today. And yeah, it's kind of fun. We're trying to figure out how to make hopefully interesting things. But so what I'm using here today is the DeWalt 735X planer. When they say the X, there's only one 735. And I'd like to say some, I don't really have any good joinery because I'm really not a woodworker. I have to use a domino in order to do joinery. I did one table with where I cut the tenons. I got to do more of that in order to practice and get better with the technique. But eventually we'll do more. But this is the 735. The 735 is a nice planer. Like it's kind of like the one a lot of people want. I was able to find this on a good deal on Facebook Marketplace. And there are some newer ones. If you're going to spend the full amount, like this can be found usually about $600, or if you're going to spend up more, I think the MSRP is higher than that. So back in the fall, a lot of them were like $800-900, and then you could find very random deals for $600. But right now, I think a lot of them are selling for $600. So $600, that's a pretty solid deal. It does have these 3-bladed cutters. Better if you have the helical cutters. You can add those on for $300 or $600, depending on where you're getting from. So I would say try that. All right, gotta run. I've been curious about the domino. I have a rigid 4/3. Oh, nice. I'll do one show where we'll do a live stream where we do dominoes in the future. I don't know when, but we'll try to do more of that. But I gotta run, so hope you have a great one, and see you next time.